Congo and tropical West Africa are places where magic has a more colorful character than you have ever seen in any work of literature except African literature. On the surface, any fantastical element from this region appears to be a simulacrum of mainstream fantasy, but look deeper, and you find something of far greater depth beneath. For instance, you see characters covered all in black paint, black robes, and holding human skulls, and you think that that is an evil witch or wizard. But actually, that character may be trying to get in touch with spirits on the other side for the greater good of society. Or you see a character in all white and you assume they are good, but they are actually associated with death. Hello, friends. We have now reached over 1,000 subscribers. I am honored and I thank you. Today, we look at an area as large as the entire United States and the Indian subcontinent combined. Join me as we take a deep dive into the Congo and tropical West African fantasy aesthetics. Just like the Sahelian architecture is shaped by its dry, hot environment, the architecture in the tropical Congo and West Africa regions is shaped by its hot, humid climate. When you visit these regions, you see thatched roofs and earthen walls, which are excellent at keeping out the heat and rain. A perfect demonstration of this is the palaces of the Bamileke kings. Bamileke Palace is a massive circular structure enclosed under an immense domed thatch roof. The structural frame of the building is made of bamboo and raffia palm ribs, which are then reinforced with cob. Cob is a mixture of subsoil, water, and straw. Looking at a Bamileke palace from the outside, you can see a facade made of tightly woven vertical bamboo tied with robust raffia rope and sealed with packed earth. This facade covers the entire exterior part of the wall and is punctuated by intricately carved wooden pillars that create a kind of veranda for the building. The intricate carvings on the pillars are images of courtiers, servants, and significant ancestors posed in a way that brings prestige and authority to the court. All this art in the court is commissioned by the king. Among the Edo of the ancient Benin Empire, the king or Oba lived in a massive palace complex with hierarchical courtiers. Only a small section of the ancient palace of the Oba of Benin exists to this day. So all we have are descriptions of what it used to look like centuries ago. For example, a 17th century Dutch explorer described the Oba's palace as a sprawling complex of many large courtyards and galleries. This is because the palace complex was a series of buildings built around interconnected courtyards. Art in the form of square bronze plaques with embossed images that had different political, religious, and spiritual meanings was displayed on walls and pillars all over the palace. Apart from the bronze plaques, there were other striking pieces of art, such as the sculptural motif of a bird with outstretched wings that appeared atop roof turrets and towers of the palace. The bird of prophecy is a symbol that represents the power of the Oba. The story behind the sacred bird of prophecy begins with the first king of the Edo people, who met a sacred bird that prophesied he would lose a major war. So, the king shot down the bird and went on to win the war and establish the Benin Empire. So the bird represents the king's defiance of fate and the establishment of the Benin Empire. In Ghana, the supreme traditional monarch of the Asante Hene, lives in a palace complex of courtyards surrounded by thatched rectangular buildings. The courtyards are smaller than those of the palace of the Oba of the Edo people. Each house around the courtyards serves a different purpose. For example, there is a designated residence for the Queen Mother, another for the King's guards, another for the treasury, and another serves as a gathering hall. The exterior walls are mostly white, but the lower band of the wall is painted a reddish brown. On the white part of the wall, there is a sculptured image of a crocodile depicted in relief. Crocodiles are sacred animals in most of the African continent. On the orange part of the wall, various sculptured Adinkra symbols that also appear in relief. For example, one of the symbols is that of Sankofa, a mystical bird of the Akan people. The bird is depicted with its head turned back, gripping an egg in its beak while its feet face forward. Sankofa symbolizes the saying, "It is not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten." Other images depicted on the palace walls include those of fish, plants, and abstract designs which carry deeper meaning. In the Kongo Empire, architecture was not just inspired by its environment, but also by the kingdom's interactions with the rest of the world. Had you visited the royal city of Mbanza, Congo, you would have wondered whether you are in an alternate world where European buildings appeared side by side with African buildings. The Congo king actually lived in a palace that was heavily inspired by buildings in Portugal and Spain. You see, trade between the Congo Empire and the European kingdoms of Portugal, Spain, and Rome dates back to 1390 CE. With the trade also came Christianity. So, what did the people in Congo and tropical West Africa wear? You are not in the tropics this time, so you do not face the harsh desert-like conditions like in the Sahel. Instead, you are surrounded by a mix of humid tropical forests and green grasslands. For that reason, you don't need to layer your clothes or wrap a turban over your head. In Ghana, if you are a man, all you needed was a kente cloth slung over one shoulder like a Roman toga without a tunic. The women would wrap a large piece of cloth across their bodies from their chest to just above their knees. Sometimes they would also drape another piece of cloth over their shoulders. This was ideal to keep them cool in the humid conditions. In the Benin Empire, the men either wore white waistcloths or long robes. Women wrapped cloth around their chest or waist and accentuated the look with a short cape made entirely of red coral beads draped over their shoulders. Men also wore bearded caps, while women kept their hair in neat cornrows covered in red coral beads. Royal women and palace attendants wore elaborate red coral bead decorations on their heads, just like their men. They would weave the coral beads into their hairstyles. The king wore more coral beads designs than most of the royals. His conical crown was made of beads. He even wore a whole shirt made of red coral beads. Congo Kingdom nobles and the royals wore tunics and capes made from raffia fiber, velvet, cotton, and silk. The silk came from China through Europe. The king and nobles wore gowns made of expensive materials and caps made of knotted raffia or pineapple leaf fibers. Clothes made from animal hides were also common among smaller communities that lived in areas around these kingdoms. For example, among the short-statured pygmies of modern Congo, animal hide cloth and grass skirts were common. They lived in remote areas of the forest where they studied plants, made complex herbal medicines, and dabbled in magic. Apart from their encyclopedic knowledge of forest biodiversity, the Pygmies of Congo believed that the forest was a god, a provider. They practiced honey magic and believed in forest spirits that provided protection from the dangers in the forest. And who knows, some of the Pygmies may have encountered the Mokele Mbembe, a sauropod-like creature that many say lives in the rivers of the Congo. It is not really a monster, but a shy animal with a snake-like head, a long neck, and a body resembling that of an elephant or hippo. People who have seen it say that it is a plant eater. But familiar animals such as birds also had magical capabilities among the people of Congo and tropical West Africa. Sacred birds were considered to have some connections with the spiritual world and could convey messages from spirits to people. Another detail about the magic systems of these regions is that you could learn plant magic and other types of skills in special secret schools. For instance, secret societies in places like Sierra Leone created camps in the forest where they trained their members in magic for various purposes, mostly to maintain order in society. As far as spirituality is concerned, The concept of good or evil is very different from what you see in the mainstream media or popular literature. For example, wearing white or painting your body white represents your intention to connect with the spiritual world or the world of the ancestors. You connect with the spiritual world to invite cooling, purifying, or calming spiritual forces. So, white can represent those forces of purity, calming, and cooling. Black, which is also a spiritual color, represents mystery and power of the spiritual world. Red represents evil or danger in tropical West African societies. Another place where color was used to signal different spiritual meanings is during masquerades in Congo and West African communities. The masks and costumes worn during masquerades are magical items that allow the wearer to possess the spirit represented by the mask or costume. Masquerades in Nigeria often feature dancers wearing costumes made of hay, raffia, and other threads. Once the dancer wears the costume, they are sent into a spiritual trance, which makes them break into a complex, mesmerizing dance. These masked figures are called zangbeto, and they help maintain order in communities found in Nigeria, Togo, and Benin. They are often associated with Vodun religion. Another type of masked figure is the egungun, which wears a flamboyant costume that is made of a collage of different bright colors, especially red, yellow, purple, orange, and blue. Do not touch these costume individuals because that may bring you bad luck or curses. These societies were also engaged in different economic activities, not just trade. For example, they had basket weavers, blacksmiths, farmers, potters, textile industry, builders, miners, all sorts of skills. They had no shortage of skilled men who worked with a variety of tools and materials. Art was not just displayed on their buildings, but also appeared in the form of complex designs on their swords, spears, shields, and armor. Several metal workers' guilds were formed to accept commissions from the king. They made art pieces from bronze and also ceremonial swords. If you visited the Congo or tropical West Africa and saw a sword that looked like something out of an anime series, it was most probably used for ceremonial purposes. For instance, in Ghana, you swore allegiance to a king by holding a ceremonial sword and pointing it directly at him seated on the throne. Other economic activities of Congo and tropical West Africa included hunting, fishing, and practicing intense agriculture. They farmed rice, palm, and cereals, and kept animals such as goats, sheep, and chicken. They mined for gold, iron, and copper. So there you have it. That is all I could put together in a short time for Congo and tropical West African fantasy aesthetics. But I have only scratched the surface because there's a lot I could have shared, but then the video would have lasted for hours. Please subscribe, share, and like to help with YouTube algorithms. Goodbye and good luck.